Hi guys, this is Abigail, and this is a little chat about Saturn and Aries. Saturn is entering Aries very, very soon, tomorrow, in fact. This is a roughly 2.5 year cycle. We had our Saturn and Aries moment that started back in March of 2023, and now we are finishing it up. We had a little bit of time back in the summer. End of April was when Saturn went into Aries, and then I think by September it was back in Pisces. But we are now in it for the long haul. So for the next 2 years, we get to engage in Saturn and Aries. I don't often do a lot of world event stuff. I like to focus on aspects and transits from kind of a personal perspective, but I do think it's important to note kind of the years that we've had Saturn in Aries. The last time Saturn was in Aries was 1996 to 1999. So if you were born during those years, this is your Saturn return. Welcome. It will be a unique one for you because Neptune is in Aries, which is an unusual event. Neptune hangs out for a while in a sign, about 14, roughly 14 years. Um, and it's going to be kind of shifting the energy a bit. It's, very similar to Saturn being with Neptune and Pisces, different vibe, but a similar kind of obscuring and kind of blurring of some of the lines. As a Saturn and Aries native, or just someone who has it in a very specific house, Saturn and Aries is in detriment or fall, in fall, which is slightly not as gnarly as detriment, but it is still this energy of Saturn not really functioning in its normal Saturnian way. I don't necessarily see it as bad. I see detriment and fallen planets as fighters. These are people who have experienced some kind of hardship or are just very good with handling it. But those two things tend to tend to kind of work together. So this is fighter energy. This is energy of someone who resists the norms. It's energy of someone who resists the rules and the barriers. Also, someone who likes to do things quickly. I know a couple Saturn Aries people who have rammed through certain life events because they were tired of waiting. Um, because they are from that generation, it is yet to be seen during the Saturn return if that'll pan out for them. But this is an energy of heightened, often heightened restriction when it comes to world powers, but also heightened pushback. I think another important dates, the time before that was 1967 to 1969. We had, the Vietnam War going on, or at least the kind of lead up and the intensifying of said thing. A lot of infighting. We had the death of Princess Di. We had the death of I don't think the death of Princess Di. That was much later. No, yeah, the death of Princess Di was in the 96, 99 one. So we're going to see Earth, like large figures passing away. I do think with Neptune and also Jupiter trine stuff, we might see some not so fun people passing because I know we all didn't really want anything. None of us, I wasn't quite very old then, but Princess Di was beloved back in the which is why I got confused, 1967, 1969. JFK and Martin Luther King both were assassinated. So recognizing that there's often a oversized violent reaction to people with new thoughts and ideas. Princess Di, was breaking free from the patriarchy, was pushing away the restraints put around her, and she lost her life because of that. Because I think we all can agree that that was a very suspicious situation, especially with what we know now. Lots of big cultural movements happen during this transit. Lots of alternative culture. I'm really excited to see the alternative culture that is pushing back to things like AI and kind of the homogenizing of people's facial features. I think we're going to see a lot of people going back to more natural facial features, especially by the end when Saturn heads into Taurus. Also, fun fact, the beauty standard isn't about beauty, it's about money. So we're also going to see, as facial work and body work and GLP-1s become more and more accessible to the public, we're going to see a flip, and wealthy people are going to go the opposite direction. So I think that's going to start during the Saturn and Aries moment. being a chunky gal, being fat was highly attractive in cultures because rich people could access food. Being thin has been attractive because rich people can access healthy food and exercise and personal trainers. So never feel bad about the way you look. It has nothing to do with true beauty and like like actual aesthetics. It has everything to do with who has money. And if you can throw that off, you'll have a lot more fun. And also, you'll find a lot more people beautiful, which is how it should be. So we are seeing a lot of really big stuff. I think we can't really talk about, Saturn Aries. I mentioned this without Neptune. Lots of big weather events are going to be happening, really devastating ones. Um, I think there was a massive tsunami in Japan during the last one in Capricorn, which are caused by earthquakes, very Capricornian. We are going to see an uptick probably in wildfires, lack of water, which is not a shock, but that's how astrology works, AI. And what a lot of people don't know is fracking, and especially drilling on land destroys water tables and corrupts them and puts silt in them. So we're going to see a lot more contaminated water. This is a call to push back on everything AI. This is a call to push back on everything that's happening, the removal of protection for endangered species, the selling off every last bit of resource to billionaires. Um, we should never have allowed water to be privatized. That's crazy. Or mineral rights. All of those things should have been public. Not in the sense of like trading, but as in like it should be owned by the public and honestly owned by indigenous folks. And then we rent it from them. But no, that's not where we are. So just know that a lot of really fiery, spicy things happen in the world during Saturn and Pisces, and is going to be kind of added to with this kind of I would say magnifying nature of Neptune. It kind of, throws things into a distortion. So being really connected to yourself and really true to yourself and connected to your community is going to be really important. For my Saturn return folks, this is my advice for pretty much all and every transit. Batten down them hatches, baby. So you're already in your nodal opposition, which is kind of the precursor. That's why people are like, oh, I feel like in my Saturn return when they're like 27. That is why 27, 28, nodal opposition. It really starts to strip things away, and then Saturn gets its hands in there and starts to work. With Saturn and Aries, learning how to engage with time in a way that makes sense for you specifically. With detriment and fallen planets, it's really about getting to know them, about understanding their unique qualities rather than just kind of going off of the archetypes. Um, if you also have a fallen or detriment planet in retrograde, that can also create a really unique dynamic that really requires. One of my mentors told me retrograde planets are an invitation to create a unique relationship. And so it really requires a unique relationship to engage with planets. So just keep that in mind, because some of you will have a retrograde Saturn. So yeah, a lot of fiery stuff. I will say Saturn and Aries can struggle to hold space for conflicting ideas. Not that you can't, you just tend to have a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to them. The Saturn moment is going to force you to kind of pick up some tools to understand that not all conflict needs an immediate reaction. Some of you need to learn to let it play out. Let other people put their foot in it first. You don't need to be the first one on deck for a fight. You need to start to plan a little bit, and it doesn't mean you have to slow down because you naturally move faster with a Saturn in Aries. It just means that you need to get strategic about your speed. Be strategic about where you put your energy. Be strategic about the pacing that you pace things at. Um, you know, like I said, my advice is always kind of prepare, get rid of the things you can get rid of. Saturn will strip you down, but Saturn doesn't strip you down for no reason. I will also say, as someone who hit the other side of their Saturn return, and part of it is because I do have a Saturn ruled Saturn, so it's a bit of a different vibe, but you get to look forward to having a better relationship with time. Time feels a lot different on the other side of the Saturn return, and I think you will enjoy it. But it only feels different if you take the time to sit with it, if you take the time to learn those lessons, if you take the time to participate in those things. As far as it kind of sitting generally in everyone's charts, please look up the house that Saturn is in. It will give you so much information. Also, excellent time for everyone and anyone to get any kind of reading, year ahead reading, Saturn reading, eclipse reading. These types of shifts can really be navigated and figured out with the help of an astrologer. So it doesn't have to be me, but I would suggest finding someone, although I am a good astrologer. So that's kind of what I would call the overview of it. As far as us working through it and with it, taking the qualities of the house. Mine is in the eighth, so um, I'm already seeing family dynamics crumble. Knowing that this is a restructuring, so stuff is going to fall apart in the eighth. The eighth has a lot to do with contracts, death, sex. One of the best ways I have heard it described and continue to use to describe it is the place where other people's stuff lives. It's also going to be an opposition to your second house, which is to my second house. Sorry, this is about me. To my second house. So check out what the opposition is. If you have it in the 11th, the fifth is the opposition. So know that that is equally impacted, just in a different way. Cheers. So, for instance, in my second house, I'm also going to be challenged when it comes to utilize and to build structure around my gifts and talents and the things that are innately mine. In opposition to things that are innately other people's, that involve other people, that are entangled with others. It's very different from the seventh, which is more about kind of a relational dynamic. This is a dynamic of give and take. This is a dynamic of push and pull. This is a dynamic that requires boundaries or it will not work. So checking out where that is. If you have it in the 12th house, this is the place of mysteries, the abyss, accidents, being really careful around taking risks. As someone who tends to take more risks, you have it in the 12th, be thoughtful. So definitely look into that. I'm excited for it simply because, as I predicted, Saturn in Pisces was going to be deep waters and a lot. In the very least, we're going to go full scorched earth with Saturn and Aries. And a lot of us are going to be forced out of our comfort zone with Saturn and Aries. So just be ready for that. Know that we're coming up on these more difficult times, these shifts. Also know that people with Saturn and Aries are going to challenge you and push you to your limits when it comes to anger. This is also the opportunity to harness your anger and rage for positive things. And when I say positive, I don't mean love and light. I mean for shifting and changing dynamics, for standing up for yourself, for pushing back against people who take too much or who push your boundaries or who just don't believe in you and who refuse to see you for who you are. I will say, as a cautionary tale, we are also affected, not really cautionary tale, but as a caution, we are affected by Saturn and Aries. It means that we can be a bit overbearing and push people. My kind of thing, because I'm autistic and I struggle to kind of know sometimes like what pressure to put emotionally on people. I was taught to be very accommodating, which isn't a bad thing. I just, out accommodate myself. Is, I use equal pressure. If someone is pushing back on me, I push back as equally as I can. Because I don't want to harm people, but I also deserve to stand up for myself. So I think Saturn and Aries is going to be teaching us how to put that equal pressure. And yeah, we're going to go past it. People are going to go past it, and it'll be a dance of reeling it back and figuring it out. I think Saturn and Aries is going to teach us a lot about regulation. Regulation is not peace, it is not calm. Regulation is the ability to move through stress and anxiety and a world that is not built for us, and to flow with it and to allow ourselves to feel our feelings while trying to survive. And as always, because it is going to be a high pressure time, I remind people coping skills and coping mechanisms are essential to live. However, I encourage us all to be conscious of the ones that we are using and to use them intentionally. If you're going to disassociate, pick a time, pick an activity, pick a place. So that you don't like lose out on relationships and connections because we're kind of going a bit overboard, which is the trick of Aries energy. Is that if an Aries, they are wonderful, energetic, exciting, but they can often kind of go past the limit a bit, which is necessary. We all need someone who can do that, but it is about learning when it is appropriate and when it is not harming others. So yeah, that's the energy. It's going to be pretty spicy times. We're going to be in it. It goes until 2028. So we have a bit of time in this energy. Like I said, it is going to be colored by Neptune. So we're going to continue to see really big environmental events happening. So take care of yourselves. If something really big is reported in your area and you get a heads up about it, please take it seriously. I know we kind of live in a world because of capitalism where we're taught to like minimize stuff and like go to work anyways. If something bad is going to happen, try to get to a safe place. Say that seriously, because while I don't, like I said, do a lot of mundane astrology in these videos, I think it's important to know the energy we're dealing with, and it's volatile, and it will continue to get more and more volatile, especially once we get Jupiter in a trine. Really going to be setting some things off. Some really beautiful and good things, but there is always pushback. And as the old guard and old ideas die, they try to take as many of us with them as possible, and that has always been the case. So really do your best to connect to others, to build resources, to find ways to build. I'm really happy that we have Pluto in a sextile to this conjunction and to Neptune for a bit, because I do think that that collective energy, though a lot in Aquarius, is what is really going to tether us to each other in kind of Aryan age and a Leo age, where individualism and protecting ourselves can sometimes win out over community care. Um, I do also think this Aries energy, because it is so like high, will give us more energy to connect to others. It's not, I want to be clear, it's never like, oh no, it's all bad. It's not all bad. It never is. There are good qualities and difficult qualities to all signs. I do think it's going to make us more gregarious, more likely to reach out to people, which is great. But if we are not conscious and aware and handling and dealing with our trauma, it can really cause us to like get fight or flight and like attack people because we feel threatened. And you will notice that if you have some unhealed Aries Saturns, they will be biting, they will be lashing out. So just be aware. Don't weaponize astrology against them if they don't know it. But you can protect yourself knowing what they are probably going through. That's why I read other people's charts that I know, to not to judge them or to, you know, be like, oh, that's why they're such a loser. I do it so that I can better work with them and find better times to have discussions and conversations that might be difficult, or just to look and be like, hey, they might be going through it. Maybe I should reach out if I haven't in a while. That's how I prefer to use other people's charts if I am closely and intimately connected. Anyways, that is kind of my little ramble on Saturn and Aries. It's going to be interesting. Like I said, this is, you can never fully predict something till you've been in it. I will say that, which is kind of the backwards way astrology works, especially with none of us having experienced, Saturn, Neptune, and Aries ever. It's been a long time. So yeah, as Neptune has a pretty long cycle. So we're all in this together. We're all experiencing this together. If you're going to Saturn return, I know it's going to be rough for some of you. Some of you will actually come out in flying colors. There's always like a 10% group of Saturn folks who are like being super chill about it. I do think this one's going to be a little more difficult, so maybe not that big of a percentage. But you will learn some really beautiful lessons, especially if you can be open to them. Saturn also teaches us when things are over. It also teaches us when things are not stable. So if stuff is starting to feel destabilized, allow it to crumble in order to build something that is more sustainable and more long lasting. Learn those Saturn lessons. And no, those lessons never end. I am, what, 2 years on the other side of my Saturn return, and I am still picking up lessons. Might be because I'm a very late degree. I'm actually the last degree, 29-degree Saturn, but you will continue to live out those Saturn lessons until your next Saturn return, but do your best to kind of lock in and open yourself up to learn lessons. And, my Saturn folks especially feel often harassed by Saturn, especially my folks with Saturn in detriment or fall. Sorry, which would be Saturn Cancer, Saturn Leo, and then, Saturn in Aries. He is not out to get you, but he's a very strict master to his Saturn folks, and you guys get the biggest benefits and also the biggest difficulties. And I am always here for you. I get a lot of readings of Saturn folks who are struggling. So if you need a little bit of help and support, I am not technically a Saturn person, but I'm an honorary Saturn person because my Saturn placement is so difficult and loves to mess with me. Not really mess with me. I just have some interesting patterns in life. Anyways, my dears, This is just my kind of little ramble about this. I am excited to see the art and the creativity that comes out of Saturn and Aries. I think it's gonna be really fun and punk and um, and wild and absurdist, which I'm excited for. A lot of big things. Saturn and Aries is kind of silly, goofy, and ridiculous. I'm excited for some oversized stuff again, and some sharper colors and shapes and edges to come out in society. I'm very tired of the millennial beige and the, social media aesthetic. I really want something real and tangible. And I think a lot of us are really craving that. And that's what late stage capitalism does to you. Anyways, that's my kind of little Saturn and Aries ramble. I love you all. I will be posting an eclipse season video possibly. I think it will be another kind of a ramble where I just kind of talk about what I think I see coming. I tend to do better with free flow and kind of going with my intuition and channeling some messages from spirit. Anyways, that is my little chat to you. If you have any questions about your Saturn return, I'm more than happy to answer really simple ones. If you want your chart read, you will have to book me. But I love to hear your stories. I love to hear your feedback. And also, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you all later.